the podcast. My name is Mark Ritter. I'm joined by my co-host, Christian Dominique. And today we are joined by a very special guest. Dr. Med Kharbach is joining us. He is a Moroccan-Canadian educator and researcher based in Halifax, Canada. He started teaching in Morocco in 2003 as an EFL, English as a Foreign Language teacher, spent 8 years in K through 12 classrooms before moving to Canada, and has been thinking about technology and learning ever since. So he holds a PhD and a Master of Education from Mount St. Vincent University, where he now teaches. And he's the founder of Educators Technology, a platform that has been guiding teachers since 2011 and now reaches educators worldwide. He's the author of Teaching with AI, Practical Strategies to Integrate AI in the Classroom, co-author of the AI Turn Academic Research, and his forthcoming book, The BEARA Framework for Pedagogical Integration, is coming out with Toronto University Press. Med, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
very
us.
much. Thank you very
Yes.
much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you and with Christian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're really an expert in your field. And to put it in perspective, right now there is a student somewhere who has an assignment, who's reading it, putting it in a chat bot. Couple minutes or less later, assignment is there. It's given. Teacher gets it a bit later, grades it, get a decent grade, but the student didn't learn anything doing that,
That's
right?
right.
And this is not a technology story. This is a learning story, right? You talk a lot about literacy. So today we're going to talk about AI literacy. And
Mhm.
this is happening in classroom everywhere. Can you tell us a bit of how you got to become an expert on this and what you're seeing in the field?
Thank you very much for calling me an expert, though I don't think I am, but but that's a good, that's a welcome compliment, though. so with AI, I like to frame it as a literacy, and I like the perspective from a literacy point of view. And my work and my doctorate has been around emerging literacies. And so I think when we approach AI from a literacy perspective, we look at pedagogy in general, and it's not just a set of tools. And that's what I like about this approach, because a lot of teachers now are very much concerned about the tools, which tools to use, which platforms. But from a literacy perspective, we're looking at the methods of learning at technology and not the technology itself. We're looking at how this technology can help our students develop the skills we need for them in order to thrive in an economy where AI is very pervasive. And so this all of this literacy thing is just a focus on pedagogy. That's what it means. And yes, AI literacy now is a huge thing because AI has disrupted the way we teach and the way students learn. And we're hoping that by framing AI within an educational perspective, we get to see really the benefits and also to acknowledge the limitations that AI has. So that's my whole framing of the AI and how I approach it in my work as well and in my teaching.
And can you tell us some of those limitations that you're talking about?
Yeah, you just mentioned you just mentioned the assessment problem and how students are using it to outsource their thinking to the machine and get answers really made. That's a huge thing. So cheating is one of the things that many teachers are really thinking about right now. Because here's the thing: in the old model, teaching the old traditional model, probably you and me have used before. So you have a task, and then students work on that task, and then the teacher grades that task based on the product that the students provides us. And now the conditions under which the product is made before AI, we could control them. We can say, okay, the student did this and this in under these conditions. And so now we have different conditions. If the students are doing the assignment under an AI condition, then we can no longer say that the product they provide us really provides us with an evidence of their learning. And that's a huge, big limitation here in terms of how we assess students. That's just one of them. And there are also ethical problems. A lot of people are having problems with how they training data that's used in the models, how it reflects certain epistemological, certain ways of knowing, mostly Western centric kind of knowledge, because the data is just a mirror of what people think. And most of the data used in training of the AI comes from a Western world, Western European, not even European, I would say North American centric data. And so we find a lot of the epistemological kind of perspectives in the data reflect those things. And so there is the marginalization of the systems of knowing of like indigenous people, of minority groups, and of LGBT groups. And there are several minority groups whose ways of knowing have been marginalized. There's also the ecological problem. A lot of people have problems with AI. They don't want to use it simply because it's ecologically harmful. It uses a lot of water, a lot of electricity. And so, you have a different kind of collection of limitations, and each one, and because some people, I know a teacher who does not like to use it because of ecological problems. He said, I feel like I'm doing some kind of harm to our planet by using AI and promoting this tool and encouraging other people. And so, but at the
Mhm.
end of the day, AI is here. It's a very strong technology. It's very immersive, meaning it has touched every single facet of our life. And personally, I don't think that just because it has limitations, that we can just sideline it and say, okay, I'm not going to use this tool because it has this. Because in the history of humankind, all kinds of technologies, they have limitations. No matter what kind of technology, we have limitations. But our job as teachers and as educators is to help our students see the limitations, acknowledge the limitations, but also tap into the educational leverage of this tool. So that's how I see it. But I do acknowledge there are very big limitations in AI, and whether it's ethical, ecological, epistemological, you name it, we still have to keep them in our mind as we interact with these tools.
Thanks for the reflection, and specifically for the bias and looking at. I did some research recently on indigenous culture and embodied learning, so those are very real aspects of culture
True,
that are not seen necessarily
true.
in the data training. So therefore, in the thinking of the large language model. So
Hmm.
thanks for mentioning that.
So before I get more into the specifics of how AI is perhaps disrupting learning in classrooms, I do want to take a step back and understand your origin story a little bit. So you are from Morocco originally, but your career spans multiple countries, and you've taught now across two countries in multiple educational systems. How does that double perspective, right, being a teacher in Morocco and research in Canada, how does that shape how you see what is happening with AI in the classrooms right now?
Yeah, yeah, it does give you this very wide and open lens to look at teaching. When you teach in a different cultural context, you get to see the nuances in the act of teaching, and that helps me a lot. When I was teaching in Morocco, I have these big classes of 30, 32 students. I mean, we have problems of access to technology. I taught in some places where there is no internet, where there's only two computers in the whole media lab. And so students have to take turns using them. So all of these kind of background pedagogical knowledge I built there, and also all of these limitations that I faced as a teacher in that context when I came here to Canada, and look at the another context, another affordances, and how students are learning, what are the things they have access to. And that helps you acknowledge, that helps you kind of, because some teachers take it for granted. They are here teaching in a very lavish, very nice classrooms with all kinds of technology, and they think it's taken for granted that everybody else is doing the same. It's not. And so teaching here opens my mind to other people who are really, even in AI. I know now. I have a webinar and a conference with people from Morocco and in Iraq as well, and another country that's called Azerbaijan. It's another country. So I talked to the people from these countries, and they have very big issues with access to technology. Their students still don't have access to AI, and when they do, there is a problem of the cost of AI, because not all AI is the same. If you're using ChatGPT, the free version, that's old school. That's very primitive right now. And so, even in the use of AI, we have some kind of equity problems. Those who can afford very strong models, they get different learning experiences, and those who can afford only cheap ones, they get some different kind of experiences. So there are these issues, and teaching in different cultural contexts provides you with a very wider lens to look at those issues and appreciate what you work with.
So that's an interesting argument or perspective that I haven't heard yet. Basically, different pricing tiers for the AI models influences education in different ways. Well, access, I guess, to education in different ways because you're getting different modalities of interacting with the
True.
AI based on the pricing tier of what you are
Mhm.
paying for, essentially.
Yeah, it's true, because let me give you an example. Let's take now today. I just noticed that Opus, the Claude, has released a new version. It's Opus 4.8. Very
Yes.
powerful. I've been trying it just an hour ago. Very powerful. It can produce human-like language. Very. I mean, if you don't have a trained eye, it's becoming very hard for people to distinguish AI language, AI generated language from a human language. And so let's say I have a student in undergrad, my classes, who uses Opus 4.8 to write a reflection piece. And then I have another student who uses ChatGPT, free version. So there is a huge difference from the output of Opus and the output of, I can very easily tell that this student has used AI, but with Opus 4.8, it's gonna take me a lot of time, a lot of thinking, a lot of context consideration, a lot of background knowledge of my students to see whether they really write like this. So you see the difference here. So there is access to the tool. The quality of the model can have a very big impact on students' learning experiences. And I believe in this very, very well, because I have teachers who are really complaining about the differential access to AI tools, and they are asking for schools to subsidize these tools. So, and that's one of the ethical problems we have with AI when we're using it with our students in universities, in classes. If I am going to allow AI in my classroom, I have to make sure that the tools that I want my students to use, every student have access to the tool. If the tool asks for a premium subscription, I have to make sure, whether through my university or through other means, that every single student, they have access to the same model, so that we know. I don't want students coming to me and telling me, I can't use this model because I can't pay for it. And so usually through university, we got certain tools, so we know that our students having access to the same technology.
Very interesting. And yes, there has been always talk of discrepancy in education. Might it be from the books that are available to now the tools? And you talked about, as a teacher, looking to detect if it's an authentic voice versus created by AI. What
Mhm.
do you say that about AI detection tool, and should we ban AI, or how can we have a more discerning or nuanced view, as we do at all, right? So we're technology first. We think AI can be used, and it's not a technological problem, as you mentioned. It's a learning or literacy problem.
True.
So how what do you say about the organizations that want to ban AI or using AI detection tool versus other options?
You know, AI detection industry is a huge industry. It's a lucrative industry. They make a lot of money by marketing some type of myth and hype that these tools can detect the AI generated content 100%, which is not right. Well, they say 99, 98. When you look at their stats on their website, that's all garbage to me, because my understanding is the way AI works, the way it generates language is through a probabilistic patterning. So it only looks for the next token that is likely to happen within a sentence. And so what these AI detection tools do is they use the same kind of model of thinking that is embedded within the LLMs, and they try to say that since this sentence, for instance, or this paragraph follows this linguistic structure, then it means it is highly probable that it is generated by AI. Now, here's the problem. Students like me, people like me, whose first language is not English, and we have learned English in very formal educational settings. At least for me, I didn't learn English by coming to Canada or going to US and being immersed in a culture and picking up the people, how the people speak. So I learned it from books, and in books and through writings, assignments and stuff. We write like that. We write in a very predictable, structured way, which AI detection tools can very easily tell that your output is an AI generated. Why it's not? And
So
we
that's a
have
false
many.
positive, right?
Sorry,
That's a false positive, saying
that's a
that a
false
student.
positive.
Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
that's the false positive. So
Mhm.
those false positives can be very harmful. Can have some very serious psychological impact on students uh, uh, when they are accused of using AI when they did not. That's number one. Number two, we have students with special needs, students with ADHD, with all kinds of learning disabilities. Those people, they do write in a predictable, structured way as well. And so AI detection tools can very create false positive very easily towards their work. And so we do have a problem with students of special needs as well. And you know, for me personally, the problem is with AI detection. And now, luckily, a lot of researchers are pointing out that these tools do not work. And there's a lot of research now out there saying that this one, but because companies like Turnitin, they are very lucrative companies, big companies, it's very hard. They are very well embedded within the higher education system that it's very hard to just disentangle them from the system. They are making tons of money. Plus, they are providing other services, plagiarism services. They are very strong, and we've been using it for many years, and I like it. But with AI, things are different. It's not. We're not going to use the same playbook that Turnitin or any other company have used with plagiarism and stuff and apply it to AI content. That's not going to work. Now, research is showing it's not going to work. Plus, number three, why would I ban AI totally from students' use? In some of the assignments, I ask my students to use AI. I use AI in my own research, in my own writing to help me. So the thing is, I ask students, I invite them, use AI. But here is how we're going to use it. This is the right, responsible, ethical way. So blanket bans of AI, I don't think they work, because they will use AI at home or anywhere. So I'd rather my students come to me and tell me, I use AI, here's what I get from AI, and I discuss with them. For instance, if they use AI to help them with the writing of an essay, we get a discussion about how they use it, the process and thing, other than for them to use it and then in a hidden way, and then you don't get to know how they used it, and they will always say we don't use it. And everybody now can tell an AI generated language from a non AI generated language. And so the problem is, we're not looking, because these AI detection tools, they create this struggle between the teacher and the education and the student. We don't have a struggle. We are not in war. We're not in a surveillance culture. We are in a learning friendly context where we have to encourage our students that we are here to help them learn and to guide them. We're not here to survey them. We're not in a prison using the watching over them to do something bad and then have repercussions. But that's not how teaching works. Teaching is a very social, friendly relation between the teacher and the students, and it's based on trust. If you trust your students how they work and stuff, that's how it's based on. AI detection disrupts this relation between teachers and students, creates this tension, which is not very conducive to profound learning, and creates many problems of false positive, as you mentioned, Christian, which are not really very good for students. They hurt their learning, they hurt their motivation, they can be very destructive to their psyche, to their confidence. And so we have to stop using these AI detection tools as the main tool to detect students, AI generated tool. We are not in a business to detect students whether students use AI or not. We are in a business to see how students use AI and whether this use really aligns with the learning outcomes that I want my students to get. So that's my point about
I
AI
really love it,
detection.
Med. I couldn't have said it better. I really agree that the trust and the confidence
Mhm.
of the learning experience is very important. And even if one out of 100 is a false positive, that's too much because you have a learner
That's true.
that actually spent some time to learn and to create something and then is accused of cheating, right? So I really
Yeah.
think that's a good point. And you mentioned plagiarism as well. So before we used to look at, was a text taken directly and not quoted or not referenced as plagiarism? But AI detection is very vague and it's based on numbers, right?
Indeed.
We just submitted a paper at R and we used Claude to
Mhm.
edit some part of it, not for the
Yeah.
ideation, and we declared it, right? We used this model of Claude for this
Yeah.
purpose.
That's what we do.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. That's how it should be. There should be transparency. I use it the same way you said. I use it to edit my style and refine it. Yeah, ideation is mine. Everything is your responsibility as a researcher. But why not use AI to help you with your? And let me tell you this: before AI, for people who speak English as a second or third language, like me, we have. If you're doing research, you have a very big mental bandwidth in your mind. You have to focus on just getting your ideas written in a way that is academically acceptable for journals. And that takes you a lot of effort. This effort now, you don't have to channel all your effort into just how you can say this sentence in an academically acceptable way. Let AI do that for me. And let me save that energy for ideation. Let me rechannel that energy towards thinking deeply about my research, seeing other ways to find solutions, problems, gaps, things like that. Language should never be a hindrance, a barrier to doing research. Before AI, for scholars like me, language was a big problem. I have to spend a lot of time when you're writing a research paper. Even in my doctoral thesis, took me months and months just writing a chapter, revising it, sending it to the supervisor, getting it back. Few, no, change this sentence, change this word. No, this doesn't work. So it takes a long time. Now we can save that. We can save the time and the effort using AI, but you can channel that effort towards ideation, creating authentic, original ideas that the field in which you're writing can really benefit from. I don't want to read a very polished prose which has no authentic ideas. What's important in research is the ideation. It's not the language. When I'm reading a piece of research, I'm more interested in the ideas in the research. I'm not interested whether you use AI to write this sentence or you use this phrase. No, I want to see the ideas you put there. Are they original? Do you reference? Is your research backed up by other references, by other people, scholars in your field? What's the contribution, the value that your research adds to this? AI can't do that. You are an expert in your field. You can do that with the help of AI. And so I do think very strongly that researchers need to use AI to help them with the writing. It can save them a lot of time and it can improve the quality of our research as well. And so we shouldn't be bothered with just this sentence or this paragraph written by AI or not. That to me is a very very ridiculous kind of discussion.
I really like that point of view as well, and I want you to maybe think about what we can do. For instance, AI as grammar, structure, style, versus using AI for finding references, right? So we're talking about scientific papers. AI can find other articles. It does sometimes hallucinate. And then if AI summarize some research paper and you didn't read it, how can we make sure that the student actually go and read? What's this whole thing of, can people read the whole book anymore, or are they always summarizing, or an article? What are your views on that?
I've been always been very clear with my students about this. If you take the shortcut to not reading, you're probably gonna get a stuck in the middle of the way. And if you're doing research and you're citing references that AI read for you, you're looking for trouble because AI can hallucinate a lot, as you mentioned. I don't trust AI with references. Definitely, it's not trusted. No matter what, never trust AI with providing you with accurate differences. I've tried it and I've seen it many, many, many times. It can change, just the URL, the GUI, the pages. You can't trust it with references. That's number one. Number two, I always recommend doing a layered approach, a multi-step approach to doing, for instance, using AI in research. Let's say I am doing a literature review. So what I do is I like to, yeah, I get AI to help me with some references. Then I do reference mining, which means, for instance, if you're new to a field of study, and you can use AI, especially the agentic AI, to help you find some papers online, save you some time, and then provide you with those papers. Just established scholars in the field to provide you. Sometimes the papers are paywalled and sometimes they're free. What I do is I go to those people, I see that what they write is relevant to what I'm researching, and then I go through their references list and I do reference mining and I see other, and from there I can find other references, and then at the end I build a library of references of works that I want to read. Sometimes what I do is I would give AI a research paper and ask it whether it aligns with what I'm interested in. I would instruct it to read the abstract and everything and tell me what is it. If it appears to me that the paper is really relevant to me, I would go and read it myself. If it's not, then I would just discard it. So this is one way AI can help. But if any reference or citation you want to use in the paper, you do definitely need to read the actual paper. So that's there is no shortcut around that one. So using AI for doing the reading is also harmful in another way, because as a researcher, if you develop this dependency on AI reading for you the research, after a year or two, you will be a student in your field. So you won't be able to, so you won't be able to have these profound insights in your field. So AI has them, you don't. So you will end up a very lazy student. That's not good. So part of doing research is the building of our expertise as researchers. When people call me or when they call you, they want your expertise. You can't have AI listening to you and giving you answers. And so if you're using it to read for you all the time, you will not get to develop the expertise needed for you as a researcher. And that's a big problem. Research now talk about cognitive laziness, cognitive surrender, cognitive,
Yes.
all of these fancy big labels, but they are real and they can be very harmful to researchers and to students as well.
Yeah, you mentioned also that you taught in K to 12. So at R, we developed an AI called Eddie, and Eddie is
Okay.
for education and is for really below 20, and it helps people with the AI to use AI as well, right? So it will, it says, for instance, that it will not do your homework for you. So it will
Right.
help you and make, trying to make you come through the steps that you need to learn doing that. And it's also helping in wellness and student wellness anxiety, burnout, stress. So, do you think tools like that could be useful for the general public, for students? We're working with one or two to pilot this in the next few weeks. I'm having a call later today about this. But what would you see that compared to using ChatGPT or other AIs that teens are already using, right?
That's nice. Based on what you said, because I don't know the tool, I haven't used it, so I can't speak to its
Hmm.
quality or anything like that. But based on what you say, it's really very promising. Any tool that pushes students to answer questions is really great.
Yeah.
And the thing with ChatGPT and other AI tools is they provide ready-made answers. And you mentioned it pushes students.
Yeah.
Now, that's really what we want. And I used to do the same thing, but in a custom GPT. So you train a custom GPT within ChatGPT, and I create one, for instance, for readings, and I would instruct it to not provide any answers to students and just ask them about the readings that they upload and push them to think harder about whether. So it's probably the same logic here. So having
Yeah.
a tool like this is really wonderful to push students to think, and instead of just providing an answer, ask them, what do you think about this? Is this correct? And things like that. And the other perspective you mentioned, the wellness and the socio-affective
Yeah.
social
Yeah.
aspects of learning. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? Because very interesting as well.
So we trained it with socio emotional learning and other aspects. So it is mainly for students. It also has some modules and training for teachers and staff. So it's a wellness education AI, and it's coming out in a few weeks. So if you or
So
your
I
teachers
am
or
I'm
school
very
want some
interested.
demo, let
Yeah,
us know.
very interested in that. When it comes out, just let me know
Mhm.
so I can try it and share it with my LinkedIn audiences, my Facebook page. There's a lot of teachers out there, and we would like to share some good products with people, with teachers.
It is also evidence based. We wrote
Oh,
paper
nice.
based
There
on
you
that,
go.
and we also have 5 levels of safety. So you have
That's
to
nice.
tell your age, and always have a human in the loop. So yeah, we try our best to make some AI that.
That's good. We're really looking for powerful education built tools, and I like when tools are built by people from within the education, where it's not only teachers, just at least knowing the research and the education parts, not coming from the corporate side.
Yes.
That's different. When I see a tool made by people who are engaged in research, engaged in education, somehow you feel like, okay, these are people that at least I have common background with them. You can talk about education if you're not from at least very much aware of the research there and doing this one. And so, yeah, when a tool like this comes from people who are people like you, sounds good. So sounds promising. Just share it with me when it's done, and we'll share it with people, try it myself, and recommend it to others on my pages and my
For sure,
LinkedIn and
you'll
everywhere
have
else.
early access, and you can give feedback, and
Good, yeah,
we'd love to hear your opinion as well.
sure.
So I have a quick question
Yeah.
about AI literacy, because you've argued that in education, AI is not just fundamentally a technology problem or a cheating problem. It's not either of those, but it's a literacy problem. Can you unpack for our listeners what that means? Because I think it changes everything about, how we respond to the AI.
Yeah. So the problem with the discourse we have around technology before AI is cheating. It's very much focused on cheating, on academic misconduct, things like that. And now, when AI comes over, that discussion carries over to the context of using AI, which is irrelevant. Cheating is not a problem within the AI world. What is a problem is the evidence that the students provides me as a teacher, does it show their own learning? If it does, in what ways? If it does not, how can I help students show their own, make their own learning visible? So if we just frame the problem within cheating, then we are going to ban AI completely. If you're telling me AI does the cheating, then that the logical subsequent kind of idea is to ban it, and we don't want that. I don't want my kid to be in a classroom where a teacher bans their AI. I don't want that because we're doing them a very big disservice. We are preparing students for an economy that is completely based on AI. They need to learn the skills to use AI. I know people push against this idea in my LinkedIn. Some people are even very angry, but we have seen this over and over and over. We are very much at the beginning stage of AI, and people have a lot of resistance. Now, if I ask you, can you compare the resistance coming from teachers and students in 2023, which is just few months after ChatGPT was released, to what it is right now? It has completely go down. People thought that AI is a fad, it's going away. Now AI is everywhere, and it's whether we want it or not, it is being part of the education that we are working within right now. And I like to, in my workshops, in my presentations, in my research, I like to view it as a literacy, as a discussion of literacy. Meaning, when I say AI, view AI as a literacy practice, it means view AI as a set of ideas, of values that we need to develop, and in order to be able to engage in a more efficient, responsible, and ethical way with AI, with the machine, with the tool. And so that's my own that's my whole conceptualization of my approach to AI and how I look at it. And so, looking at it from a literacy point of view, does not focus on cheating, does not focus on banning AI. It does mentions the misuse of AI, the unauthorized use of AI. These are still issues because, as you know, not every assignment is AI enabled. It should not be. Certain assignments, I would ask my students, this assignment, I would rather you do it yourself. For instance, let me give you an example. I taught graduate students a few months ago, uh, and I have this piece of assignments. It's called reflective writing. So students are asked to write reflective memos, and so these reflective memos, I use them because they are kind of like metacognitive checks that allows me to see the thinking that went into that piece of research or writing. And so what I do is I ask them to write a reflective report that in which they think about their own learning, their own use of AI as well, and they provide it to me. So the problem is a student can have AI do the reflective part for them too. So I usually have a 15 minutes to 20 minutes in the classroom without AI, and I tell them, please write a reflective memo within this time frame. I really want to see your thoughts. I don't want any interference from AI or any other tool, just you and your thoughts. I am not grading your writing style. I am not grading the whether it's polished, whether grammatically correct or nothing. I am just want to see how you thought, the thinking processes that were involved in AI. So that's just part of what I do. And other assignments, AI is allowed, and they are allowed to use AI during the brainstorming, editing, stuff like that. And we have a whole documentation of how they use AI. And so I welcome the use of AI in my classes. I encourage my students to use it. And so, but we do have boundaries around its use. We set kind of agreement and conventions and rules about how we're going to use AI. And so there is a huge difference between just telling students you're allowed to use AI and having a very productive discussion with your students about how they are going to use AI. So if I say you're going to use AI, it does not necessarily mean I give you a white check to do whatever you want. No, you're going to use AI, but here are the boundaries. We're not going to use AI to copy paste a whole paragraph and give it to me with no reflections, nothing, no intervention from your side as a student. That's not how we're going to use AI. This is how I am going to use AI. And you know what I do? I do something called ethical modeling in front of students. I from time to time I share with them how I use it in my own work. So I say, okay, here's a research paper I'm working it. Here's how I do it. I start with this, I do this and this and this. Here's the draft. I edit it like this. I didn't. So they see ethical kind of use of AI from their teacher, and they are more encouraged to use it that way as well, and also to have because the thing with AI, there is this stigma, this social stigma now going around AI. If you use AI, you're cheating, you're lazy, you don't know what you're talking about, and that should stop. That stigma is only there because of the misuse of AI. And no matter what you do, there are always people who are going to misuse AI. And we're not talking to those students. We're talking to those people who want to use AI, but they really want to know how. They want to know how, as a student, can I use really AI in a way to help me learn, to improve my performance in assignments and stuff. There are very genuine concerns from students about how to use it ethically, and I like that. So usually those discussions with you, my students, modeling AI use in front of them helps a lot towards guiding them to using AI in a better way.
Really enjoyed that. You take the time to show how to use AI, not just
Mm.
tell, but show, right? So that's definitely interesting. And I would say also there is a stigma. What's interesting to think about is in your AI use, are you using your human judgment, right? So are you outsourcing the administrative stuff and you're getting to something, and whatever you're using it for, are you critical about it? Do you try to make it better? Do you reject it, right? And then often
Sure.
you will use it. Everyone has said that, use the LLM and saying I disagree, and then the
Yeah,
LLM said, oh yeah, you were right, right? So
exactly. So yeah, you mentioned two important concepts here. Very, very important. You mentioned this. Yeah, you're right. Agree. It's called sycophancy.
yes.
So sycophancy is a very big problem in LLMs, and it's an inherent problem. And so what it is for people who are listening and don't know, it just means that the AI model goes with whatever you say. It's trying to please you. So that's a big problem. And I know that engineers in Cloud and ChatGPT have doing a lot of work in the latest models to reduce the sycophancy rate within their models, but it is still a problem. It is still an issue. And you know why it's a problem? I don't think it will go away very soon, because these models, Claude, ChatGPT, and all the others, Gemini, and the rest, they are again coming back to economic factor. They are lucrative for-profit businesses, and the people like sycophancy. And well, we're talking in general. There is research. Now, I shared a piece of research just 3 days ago about sycophancy, a paper, very really powerful paper about the problem of sycophancy. And some people, they like they like being pleased, they like being told that you're right and this stuff. And so that's the general public I'm talking about. And these models, by being sycophant, they are keeping people within the model, they are keeping the eyeballs on the screen. And so these people, so these companies, they do want to at least leave some. I don't think it's a big problem. If they really wanted to to get it done with, they would have done it. But because of economic kind of incentives, they are trying to keep some sycophancy with their models, to keep the people coming back, to keep them liking what they see. And so sycophancy is a problem. And you mentioned the offloading. Now there is research about cognitive offloading and its impact and the harm it does. But and I've read a couple of papers on this, and they've shared them on LinkedIn as well. The problem with cognitive offloading, at least some people get it wrong. Not all cognitive offloading is harmful. There is part of cognitive offloading which is really good for us, and we need to do it. And we have been cognitively offloading many tasks even before, from the calculator to internet right now to this now. So writing emails, getting stats ordered, generating some kind of charts, tables, things like that. They can be very easily done by AI. Why not upload it to AI? So part of the cognitive offloading can be very positive, very good for us, helpful to our thinking as well. What is bad, what is harmful, is the outsourcing of thinking, and that's completely different. And we do disservice to the concept of cognitive offloading when we put everything under this umbrella concept, cognitive offloading, as if it's being all bad. That's not right. What is bad is just one part of cognitive offloading where we outsource the thinking. Other parts of cognitive offloading, in fact, it is encouraged. You need to offload some of your cognition in order to leave space, as I said, for authentic, profound thinking. So that's very important as well.
Don't you think it applies differently to children, though, when they are in this developmental period where the prefrontal cortex still hasn't fully matured until the age of 25, that a lot of that cognitive offloading could perhaps be harmful towards their development?
Yeah, I do agree with that. Though I don't have, I'm not. What can I say? I'm not really an expert in AI with kids. A lot of the things I talk about is AI in higher ed or at least high school. But I did have very good discussions in conferences and workshops with teachers about this one, and especially with teachers teaching in elementary schools and parents as well about the impact of. So the thing with AI, it is true that it should be developmentally a kind of accustomment to students. I don't think AI has a place for students in pre-K to grade two. Those students, they are still developmentally immature. They still need a lot of kind of motricity, hands-on activities, and I don't see AI has having a place there. I might be wrong, but that's just how I see it. And also, in general, AI with kids, especially in the elementary, it should be used differently than AI with high school students and university students. There's a huge difference in pedagogy, in the approach of how AI should be used with students. And uh, I think it should be kind of having more stronger boundaries around AI use in with elementary with kids. It should be used in limited ways, in very guided ways. Supervision should be high, control the environments. I think those are all things that we need to put in place because these are kids that are still developing their cognition, and this is a tool that can do everything for them. And if we let them just build this dependency on the tool from day one, it's going to be very hard. So that's what I think. And number two is this notion is of expertise. And uh, Ethan Malik, he's a professor. He's very known on LinkedIn, very authoritative voice on AI. He has this book called The Co-Intelligence. And so he talked in one of his papers about expertise. And I liked what he said. And he talked about how the people who benefit the more from AI are those who already have the expertise in their field because they know their field. They know the canonical knowledge on their field, and AI only helps them. It guides them towards areas in their field where they can probably research more, where they can get some new insights and things like that. And number two, people who are already experts, they can very easily evaluate the output that AI provides them. So we ask students, we say, oh, you need to use critical thinking. You have to be able to evaluate the content that AI provides you. But how can you evaluate content if you don't have the expertise, the knowledge, the base knowledge that allows you to evaluate? So that's a discrepancy. That's a problem. Students need to develop this expertise. And when we're talking about kids, they have none. And if we introduce AI and control to these people, they have no base at all, and we are really introduced them to a lot of problems. So I think AI use in elementary with kids is completely different. So when I talk about AI use with higher ed, with students, but with kids, it needs certain kind of confines, limitations. And unfortunately, I'm not the authority to speak to that here. I'm still just learning about it within the within an environment where kids are around. And yeah,
Well, thank you for your thoughts on that. I think that, we also try to do in our AI and our content things that are age appropriate, right? So
true.
the different age have different,
Hmm.
Mark and I are neuroscientists, so we know about brain development,
Awesome.
and such. You mentioned the book Co-Intelligence. Can you tell me a bit more about what was the
So
theme
that's
of
a
the book?
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the book written by Ethan Mollick. He's from the Wharton School in the United States. A really very powerful book. I think it was published in 2024. That at that time, ChatGPT was still ChatGPT and Claude. I would say were still just starting. Those models just starting to get in better and better and better. But the main idea behind the book, which is what it's still just as relevant right now as it is in 2024, is Malik encourages people to use AI as a co-partner. So that's the co-intelligence part of it. So he was saying, okay, you need to use it as a co-partner, a collaborator, and a co-thinker to help you with your own thinking and not replace it. And a lot of the things he wrote in that book are being now said everywhere online, how to use AI and not replace your thinking, use it as a collaborator. So those ideas were first reverberated in this great book, and he talked a lot about the approaches to using AI effectively and stuff. And now that AI has developed, has been now we have a completely sophisticated models than the models that were there when Malik was writing the book. It makes his ideas even more relevant right now, that AI is very strong. It's very powerful in its human processing of language, in its production of language, and so we need it as a helper, as a collaborator, things like that. And people and the people now, it's finding it very hard to think about using AI as a collaborator. Some people still don't have this kind of the fine line between collaboration and delegation. That there is a fine line, very thin fine line. That's hard. So because sometimes you move from collaboration to delegation without knowing it, and then you end up, instead of using it as a collaborator, you end up delegating, over delegating everything you want to do to AI. And these are areas, I think, as research goes on, as we have more kind of insights into how we interact with AI, these are areas that needs to more research. You mentioned your scientists and stuff like this. You know that to uh, to rigorously evaluate the impact of any technology on our cognition, on our systems of being and stuff, it takes very long time. And we need very long longitudinal studies that spans many years. We have now electronic cigarettes. Let me give you this one. We have electronic cigarettes, people smoking it, and until now there are studies, but still we are still looking for rigorous kind of studies that really shows us the real impact of these cigarettes on the health, because it takes very long time for researchers to really document the process. Sometimes a researcher would start a research and they die before even finalizing this, and then another group of researchers take over the work, and that's how knowledge have been developed. And so to talk in a definitive way about the impact of AI on our cognition in a span of just 3 or 4 years. Now we have ChatGPT released in November 2022, so that's 4 years. That's almost 4 years. So very short period of time. We still need many years before we can really say confidently that AI does, like we say now for smoking, it's correlated with cancer. We say it with confidence. Now we need the same span of years and research and how things work in our cognition before we can say differently the impact of AI can do that and this and that.
I agree. There's some preliminary results, but we'll have to take longer. We do have some interesting longitudinal studies for social media and screen time. So there's
Sure.
some Université de Quebec, at Montreal, I think, research
Yeah.
that showed 15 years screen time used in children versus screen addiction, 15 years later, as the cohort became 25 and 30 years old. So it was 15 years old cohort
Exactly.
running, right? But AI is we don't have those 10 or 15 years yet.
No.
Um, and we're just trying to figure out what's going on. There are some studies that look at fMRI, functional magnetic resonance, and brain activities
Yeah.
during using of AI. And I
Yeah.
think,
EEG. That's
yeah,
right.
EEG and fMRIs. And
Hmm.
I think the concept of co-intelligence is interesting. Thanks for clarifying between like collaboration and delegation. And also, I recently was showing my teenage son how to use AI. So when you're talking about modeling, right? So getting them to know like
Absolutely.
this is the correct way to use AI, and I think we need to do more of that AI literacy, explaining
True.
you can use AI. It's not the devil. It's not bad. It's not, there are a lot of banned Gen AI and stuff, and you hear
Hmm.
that, and don't create AI for children. I was told many things as well. Don't worry, but they're like, no, they're gonna use it anyways, and let's do a good one, right?
That's true. They are gonna use it. We better teach them how to use it properly.
Yeah.
When you talk about kids, though, using AI, through which modality or device are you talking on the computer or on the phone when they're
Well,
using?
a lot of kids they use phones now or tablets, so a lot of them use that and they have access to them. My niece is just 12, 13 years and she can talk to ChatGPT using the voice mode, and that's a completely different kind of way of doing it because the voice mode and there is this research which I shared again on my LinkedIn some couple of days ago. If you go back to my uh, list of research I shared there, the post, you'll find this one about the voice mode and its impact on the trust that people get from the output of AI. People who use the voice mode get are more likely to trust that output because you hear the intonation, you hear a voice of it's not like text. And unfortunately many teenagers now and kids they use the voice mode on ChatGPT and Claude, and that puts them even in a higher degree of trust in everything the AI says to them. That's a big problem. And now they I see, I think a Claude or Chat. I don't remember which model of them they have improved the voice mode. I think it might be ChatGPT. I saw this piece of news 2 days ago. They said they improved the out mode, the voice mode on their platform, on their apps, and now it's using more human-like voices. And this increases the problem of trusting AI without any critical engagement with it. When you hear somebody saying something, you think it's a real person, especially kids. They would think it's a real person talking. Even us adults and people, when you hear a very human-like voice, you get some sense of connection. It's not like textual output, so it's very hard. So yeah, there is a big problem here with the voice modes on these models here, and I'm not sure how I'm pretty sure there will be more research onto this area, but it is very interesting area to look into.
Do you see anything problematic, though, with how kids, you know, use their phones for AI, but then they have simultaneous access perhaps to unlimited information or just content, infinite scroll on social media? The fact that these are on the same device will make it easier for kids to perhaps isolate themselves from other people and, you know, forego on the socio-emotional learning that is important to them during this period of just interacting with other people. Like I told people at a conference that I spoke at last week
Mhm.
that boredom used to be the impetus to go explore, but
True.
now that we've eliminated boredom essentially with smartphones, They're very different than when we had televisions growing up, because this is something that you can carry with you anywhere you go. Yes, we are talking about AI and the nuances of AI in the classroom, but the modality is the same. It's on a device that it's hard to limit the access if you're using AI to just go on to another channel. Do you see anything
Yes,
problematic though
yeah, it
with how
is.
it's
It
delivered?
is. It is very problematic when it comes to kids. Yes, it is problematic. Even for us adults, it is still problematic because AI in social media, every platform there is AI, and these algorithmic kind of recommendations they have now, it's all based on AI, and you can see now.
Yeah,
Sometimes on LinkedIn or on Facebook, I like a post, but I don't want to click on like
yeah.
because the post is not within my research area, and I know the algorithm will flood my stream with
Uh,
everything related to that. You see, I say, oh, I like this one, but if I click, I like it, but it's not related to my research. I'd rather see a feed that is related to my research. But if I click on like for this, then I will have all kinds of related content to that. So it's crazy how the algorithms on these social media platforms work, but that's how it is. And yes, there is research on the problem of isolations of teenagers. I'm not sure about kids, but teenagers. I've read research on this. The problem of being isolated, socially isolated because of AI, because of ChatGPT. In particular, we have cases of teenagers committing suicide because of this, because of things ChatGPT said to them. And I think they it is very problematic
yeah,
for kids because they have access to AI, as you mentioned. They have a tool, they have an app for ChatGPT, and they have social media. And as a parent, if you want to do the family control option on these things, it's very hard. So you basically end up stopping their access to everything because AI is everywhere right now. It's not
yeah,
just ChatGPT. Even when they use other platforms, there is AI algorithms working there. So, how much of freedom you allow the kid to use these things, it depends on
yeah,
parents and stuff like that. But I don't have kids, but if I have kids, I would definitely not give them unlimited access to that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
would really love to see kids, you know, not in front of their screens all the time. We missed, I grew up spending all the time as a kid outside, getting
Yeah,
hurt, getting injured, playing with no shoes on, running there and there, Now the kids spends all the time when they wake up in front of their their screens, It's a different era, yes, but they still need you probably have more knowledge about this than me from your field, but I think they still need some time off screen. Very helpful to them.
yeah. Well, it's a big issue, and I wanted to ask you this at some point, but have you seen those two recent viral videos from the commencement speeches at the
Yes,
colleges, where so
yes.
Eric Schmidt, I think, was
Yeah,
presenting at, yeah, Caltech.
yeah,
I'm not sure which one. And as soon as he mentions, so he's talking
yeah,
about how the future is there's so
yeah,
much uncertainty, but it's so exciting. And and then he, as soon as he mentions AI, all the kids start booing in the crowd. And the same thing happened weeks before with
yes.
this I think, real estate developer that they invited to give the commencement speech, and she mentioned AI, and everybody starts booing her as well. There
Mhm,
seems to be a real disconnect between the sentiment of kids towards AI, or at least
mhm.
the future of being, replaced by AI or made obsolete by AI, and adults projecting this excitement about the future of AI. How do you see this disconnect between how the older generation perhaps sees the potential of maximizing these business outcomes, and then the younger generation just has this sort of dystopian outlook on the future of AI?
True. I actually have written about these both of these incidents last week,
Okay,
and
perfect.
I shared them on my
I would
LinkedIn.
love to hear your
And
opinion.
yeah, there is a backlash towards in these commencement speeches from students towards those people. So a part of the backlash, in my own view, I might be wrong, but that's how I interpret it. So Eric Schmidt is CEO of Apple, and he's outgoing. He will leave, I think, sometime this week, this month or next one. I believe somebody else is replacing him. But Eric Schmidt is the symbolization of everything that is corporate world, and he has these billions of dollars in his wealth, and people, usually the general public, you talk to them about billionaires and you get some really mixed kind of feelings. So number one, Eric Schmidt as a figure representing AI is a bad thing. The same thing with Elon Musk and these billionaires, because when they talk about the benefits of AI, what people think about is the benefits of your own companies, and so things are mixed here. And personally, I think most of the backlash was directed towards the person than AI in general. That's number one. Number two, what people say in public is not the same thing of what they say in private, and we have seen this when Trump was in running against Hillary Clinton. You go to CNN, you go to ABC, you have all these polls saying Hillary will win with this margin, 20 or 30% margin. What happened? Trump won the elections. And so how come all of these polls they were wrong? It's because people don't say what they really mean when they are in public. I can say, if you come to me and you pull me, I can tell you, no, Trump is a very, racist kind of guy. But when I'm inside the election vote with me by myself, that's where my true identity shows up. That's where my true feelings are. I can vote for him and then go out and tell people, no, Trump is a very misogynistic, and but I did vote for him privately. And so there is this disconnect between what people say in private and what they say in public. And those students, they were booing the Eric Schmidt and the other CEO, the women, and I think some of them, I would say, some of them are really concerned about their futures with AI. Let's talk about people who are studying computer science, coding. I've read somewhere online at Forbes or something, really concerned about their jobs. What's the world awaiting them? Why are they learning ever things that now Codex or Cloud Code can do with a second? So what's the point? So there is genuine concern from students in higher ed about their prospective futures, the economic world they are graduating to. You are teaching them how to code and how to write code and stuff, and they know now that before they graduate, they're gonna have AI do everything they have learned to do. They do it. So there is this genuine concern, but also we need to be very careful between these figures that represent AI. Sometimes they don't give a good image about AI and the industry, because there is the thing. There is one group that sees AI as a symbol of the corporate world that is trying to enslave the people and take jobs from them. That's one group, and there's a huge group of people think like that. And there is this group of us in research and education where we see the light in AI, where we see there is really some potential. It can be very beneficial with learning and research and stuff. These things are, sometimes they do have tensions between them. So that's just how I see it.
Thanks for your insight on this. And I would add that, looking at the AI backlash in some ways, there is this fear, for instance, of AGI, because the big companies keep saying we're going to reach AGI, which for those who don't know is artificial general intelligence, meaning that they will be more intelligent than humans. Right now, there are some different tests in some parts of cognition. AI is more intelligent than the average human, not to the most creative, not to the most cognition, but in some case we can call it that. However, It's only on the cognitive part, right? And there's way more subtleties to a human brain, as Mark and I are neuroscientists. I'm reading a book, for instance, now called Incognito, that talks about the subconscious or the unconscious, and how, a part of learning is to put things from the cognition, the conscious, to the unconscious, right? So that you can be able to walk or ride a bicycle or drive without thinking, right?
Wow.
And same thing as other tasks. Those things will not allow AI to reach AGI that quickly. And there was a YouTube interview lately that I saw with another neuroscientist talking about his research and how AGI is very unlikely. There's a lot of other things that needs to be done. It's not just the fact that there's hallucination. It's just much more complicated. The other thing that the human brain does, we sleep, right? We consolidate memory, we prune networks,
So,
right? So there's many, many complicated things, but people have
yeah.
this fear because they've been told, like you said, your job is going to be replaced, you're going to be
Mhm.
dumb, and we don't need you. But no, AI is actually a powerful tool if used correctly and if you learn how to use it, as you mentioned, AI literacy, right?
I like how you talked about it. It's really very interesting when you talked about it in the subconscious part and things like that. But because that's true, the subconscious gets consolidated when we sleep, and a lot of information they get consolidated when we sleep. And very interesting. Never thought about it like this before, but makes sense. Very big thing. The AGI notion, they keep saying it's, sometimes they say it will be around by 2023, sometimes by 2 years, 1 year. I don't know. There is a lot of Huntington, the godfather of AI. He talked about its imminence. He said it's very imminent. It's gonna be around. Even there is this problem of consciousness, which is related to what you say, whether AI will be conscious or not. It's very interesting point as well to see it, because sometimes when I'm using Claude Cowork, and I pay attention to how it thinks, because it writes how it thinks. It says I will do this, and then I move to this. It's just like an internal kind of way of thinking before it provides you with the final product. And sometimes I pay attention to what it says during its thinking. It's like a human being, and sometimes it would flag itself. It would say, no, I shouldn't do this, I should do this. It's just crazy. You think it's like somebody thinking out loud. So it is very complex kind of intelligence. You're better. You're neuroscientists. You know more about that. But we hope that AI will not get the human features that we have at some certain point. So, but it's coming. I think the way it's improving its intelligence is really. I personally think that before 2023, maybe AGI will be around and will be. Look at agentic AI. When ChatGPT and Claude were just released, agentic AI was far away, and we already now have it, and we use it right now. So, and also I have read from Amudai, the CEO of Claude. He said more than half of the coding in Claude LLM is done by the AI. So it's crazy, because it kind of applies some form of self-learning. It learns a lot, and it modifies its systems, and now it gets better. And they started with engineers doing the coding, then only some AI helped, and now he said more than half of the coding for the company is done by Claude itself, and it's going up. So it's crazy how it's
Wow.
learning. Hmm.
Wow, that's just really amazing. Um, so I think what I wanted to ask you about is your thoughts on AI policy and how much governments are responsible in regulating AI. You mentioned before some of the legal cases like
Hmm.
Rain versus AI and perhaps even Solberg versus AI, both representing cases where the plaintiff, so the family of Adam Rain, was boy with pre-existing delusions. He was 15 at the time and
Yeah.
decided to take his own life because they argued that ChatGPT encouraged him to do so. Um,
So.
do you have any thoughts on AI policy and what are governments required to because essentially there's a incentive for these AI companies to rush the models to market, just as a competitive edge, right? But that can bring about some consequences, unforeseen consequences, as we see, and perhaps there's some consequences that on in terms of education as well. Do you think there's any um, requirement for government to create more, to regulate more with regards to AI policy?
Yeah, and I speak to the United States government again. So I'm sorry if I'm politically kind of engaged with this, but let me talk about the Trump administration, about its AI policy. And when they first got the second term, his second term, when he first started it, he came with a policy which is no policy, no regulation, to give let big companies do whatever with their AI, thinking that in this way we're going to curb the AI arms race for the American part, because they're afraid the Chinese would
Yeah,
outsmart them in AI. And so they said, if we uh, put very harsh regulations on our companies in the United States, then we might be giving a leg to China, and they might at some point and outpace our AI race. Now, here's what happened just a month ago. If you're aware of the Claude Mythos, this very powerful feature, it's called Claude Mythos, and they just released it for a few entities. It's not out yet. They released it to certain banks, and it's crazy what you can do with it. It can discover vulnerabilities in huge banking systems. It can do some crazy coding work, and and they shared it with the department, whatever it's called, the United States Department of that takes care of AI. And then 2 weeks ago, Trump himself shared a tweet, said that we cannot let just companies develop their AI models in whatever way they want. And so that's a huge U-turn in his
yeah,
own no regulation policy towards now, okay, hold on. Because the people who knows, the experts, they told him, if we go this way, we might end up with a very developed AI being used by terrorists, by some kind of bad actors, and we end up screwing up the whole world. And so we do need some regulations around the development of AI, the models that are being developed. And I think my personal thing is, yes, we do. We certainly need regulations of how AI should be developed, how it things like that. The same thing in universities where we teach. We ask for policies, very clear policies. At universities, we're not talking about the development of AI and stuff like that's a different concept than what I just said. But it's the same logic. We want clear policies from universities and institutions where we work towards how students should use AI, how it should be used in research and teaching. Right now, a lot of policy documents are still within the gray area. It's very fuzzy, it's unclear. You have in a policy just 3 or 4 lines. Okay, teachers are allowed to use AI within this and this. And we need very clear policies about AI use. And still now, only few universities they have these very developed policies. Most of them they still don't have really clear policies. So yes, to your question, I do. I am for regulating AI development and AI industry in general. We should very because that's a technology that can do a lot of harm to people if it's used by bad actors. You can see now the drones that are being used by AI. Now people can AI can kill people in other places of the world
right.
based on its own judgment of who should live and who should die. So it's crazy, and it does need some kind of regulation.
So going back a little bit, we went far, through the politics and through drones. Going back a little bit to education, if we want to see kind of the um, confidence and competence of students using AI and understanding how to help their active sense making of what AI is producing, what the teacher or class material is about, trying to co-intelligence concept
Yeah,
with the AI, not in a emotional way, as we mentioned. Some, especially voice features and others, make you believe
yeah.
that it's another human being, but you can still collaborate with a tool, right? And how, in that case, could you create assessments that are more in tune to be able to use AI in an assessment?
So for assessment, we mentioned this at the first when we started talking. This is where the area that has been hit the most by AI, and this is where the problems are in assessment. And there are different strategies that teachers and researchers are talking about, and definitely not many of them ban AI because we can't, as we say. So what we want to do is we want strategies that makes students think invisible. So visibility, that's the keyword. We want visibility. How can we make sure that what the student provides me shows me that some part of the thinking is attributable to the student only and not to AI? And so I need to look for that attribution. How can I, as a teacher, confirm that this part is attributed to students only, exclusively to students and not AI? You still can use AI, but there are certain parts in that assignments where I need to see visible thinking. And and so we talk about certain ways. By the way, there is no assessment or that is 100% AI proof, and there is no assessment that is AI resistant. So if we're talking about AI proof assessment, I don't think there is anything like AI. There is anything called AI proof assessment because AI right now, it can do every single thing we talk about here. But in order to push students, I would say, so that I don't say in order to stop students from using AI. So in order to push them to use AI in a way that they are forced to think. Let me give you this example here. Let's say you provide a reflective essay for students to write a reflective essay. And if they use AI, they can still get the essay to write them the thing. But when I ask students, if you're going to write a reflective essay, I want you to include notes from my lectures, specific context from within the lecture, specific things that I mentioned or we discussed together, or
Mm.
things that their peers talked about. So these kind of contextual, sensitive information, I need to see it in their work. Now, you can tell me they can still take that and use AI to help them write that. That's true. But at least they have to do some writing in order to write a good prompt to get that one. And so they have to tell ChatGPT or whatever, they have to provide more context to it for it to give it. And in the writing of that prompt to provide context, that's reflection. That's in itself reflection. So that's what I want. So what I do here is I push them instead of just going to ChatGPT and say, hey, my teacher, blah, 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 asked me to write a reflective note about this and this. Can you please write it? My when the way I assign it to them, they can't do that. They have to go, okay, I am writing a reflective note, I need help. So the reflective note should include, oh, this piece, so I have a discussion in class about this, I needed. So they have to to do some writing. This is just one way. The other ways are, oral presentations. Now a lot of teachers are talking about them, they're very important now. Before, I used one of the assignments before is a comprehensive report, research reports that students provide me at the end of the semester. It's around 15 pages. And so now with AI, I don't ask for that anymore. So what I do is I say, instead of 15 pages, you are going to provide me just with 3 pages of research, and then you are going to do a presentation in the classroom towards your students, and you're going to explain to them the research report, and you will have to get to provide answers to your peers when they ask. So instead of providing one grade, I am providing the grade for different elements of the assignment. So Now, the product that we use to take as an evidence of learning, we kind of divided it into small products. And together they give us an idea of how students learn. It is very hard, as I said, we're still doing with this. And one of the teachers asked me in a conference a few days ago, he said, you're talking about these strategies for assessment and they work in small classes, but in large classes they're going to be, and he's true, I don't have an answer. If you're teaching 30 students, that's going to be very hard to allow every student to do a presentation. That takes a long time. And so there is this problem of using these strategies in classrooms, which with many students. So yeah, just a few things about here and there. Just the main idea is, as a teacher, you have to be very creative on the way you write assignment. And so I mentioned before that the problem is the assignment design and not only the cheating. And so if a student uses AI to cheat in your assignment, is it a problem of the student or AI or your assignment? I'd like to start with assignment design. I said, let me see first your assignment. How did you design it? In which ways? If you're putting this assignment that AI can very easily do for students, then it's probably your problem, not necessarily the student. And so the teachers need to invest a lot of time to rethink about assignment. And it's very hard because people are very hard to get out of their comfort zone. They have been teaching for many years, and now you're telling them you need to start rethinking about how all of these things have been doing them again and thinking about them. Some people find it very hard because they are already in this comfort zone. And so, yeah, we need to think very seriously about assignments and assessment in the age of AI.
I think it's a bit similar when math teachers started to have to give assignment when the calculators were there. So no calculators at first, but then you can use it for some, and as long as you generate proof of your thinking, right? So there's always that visibility, as you mentioned, right? So
Yeah.
how can an educator see the cognitive work, see the authentic voice, and there's many creative ways to do that. And I think the onus should be with the educators and not necessarily the student
True.
only, right?
Yeah.
But the learners have to also be involved, and some will always try to cheat, but I
Yes.
think it's also a collaboration, and goes both ways.
Yes. True. There is always there are all people who will cheat. There are always students who will try to take shortcuts. We try to, as I said, we use presentations, oral debates,
Mhm.
cognitive metacognitive checks. We call them metacognitive checks. Is these reflective pieces where students have to engage with what I teach inside the course with very context specific information. So all of these, there is this process evidence kind of product where they provide a documentation of their learning. They need to show me how they develop their ideas. If they used AI, just show me how you use, provide me with a history of your chats with AI, fine. From the first prompt, let me see how you develop those ideas, which ones AI helped you with, which ones you took, which, as you mentioned before, judgment, student judgment. I want to see it. So, evaluative judgment, as it's called. So, I want to see this evaluative judgment. So, these are only some of the things that are going around now in the world of assessment of how we're trying to deal with it in the age of AI without stigmatizing AI. That's the big problem. We
Mhm.
need to help students see that AI is allowed, but we need also to make sure that there is learning assurance, as they call it, meaning I have to see that you learned. You're welcome to do it, but we need to keep those things that make sure that you show me that you learned. So, and some teachers still confuse banning AI with learning. That's not what's going to happen here. You can't ban it. So, we better think about ways to make it helpful.
Uh, Love it. Go ahead, Mark.
So I just wanted to bring this home for a second to the parents who are listening, because most of the conversation has been about AI in education, and that focus is mostly on schools and teachers. But AI tools are also on devices at home, as I mentioned before, or on cell phones. And what do you want parents, or what do parents need to understand really about what AI is doing to how their children really learn? What do parents really need to understand here?
It's the same thing for teachers. What we say to teachers:
Hmm.
develop your AI literacy first. You can't understand how AI works if you don't use it yourself. So parents, they need to know AI literacy. They need to invest time to understand how these systems work, what they do, how they learn, how they affect learning. A parent who does not know these things will think that AI is completely bad or is very good. So either way, it's not going to work. So parents themselves, they need to teach themselves about AI and spend some time online learning about AI. What is it? How it works? How it's going to help my kid if they use it? And what is what are its limitations and things like that. Only then, once
Hmm.
we develop this knowledge, only then we can treat it in the right way. But unless we don't have an AI literacy, we can't do it. It's the same thing for teachers. We say to teachers, you can't you can't leverage the power of AI in your teaching if you yourself don't understand it. So you have to start with yourself, understand AI. Go ahead online. There are a lot of resources online now, from very trusted non-profit organizations, from Common Sense, from OECD, from you name it, AI for Education and AI K-12. These are all very UNESCO frameworks. They are available for free, and these are all practitioner-oriented guides that can help people develop their AI literacy. And I see some resources in Common Sense Media. They are especially custom for kids, with using AI in with kids and in elementary schools. I still didn't have a chance to read all of that, but there are resources there. So, the
Hmm.
answer to your question is: you start by yourself, develop your own AI literacy, and once you understand what AI can do and can't do, then you start putting limits because you know what it can't do and what it can. You start putting limits to your kids because if they use it in a way that it is not aligned with how you see AI, then yes, there should be some limits to its use within uh, family and home settings.
We do have some workshops and free resources as well on our website,
Okay,
awedigitalwellness.com.
AWA.
We're also looking at, when you're talking about the AI mark before and the social media, we do have an actual phone, an OS that is called a smarter phone, and it allows to limit the time on the screen, which could be AI,
Ex-
social media, or others, and actually force you to do what you were saying before: play outside and go and meet your
Exactly.
friends and neighbors, cook for your family, go to the library. And so it's kind of a giving the tool, but with inherent limits, which is not the parental control that the other giants are giving parents, and
Uh,
saying your Facebook is parental control, but your kid has three Instagram accounts, right? So
yeah.
we know that the reality is a bit different. But in terms of AI, I think the literacy part is very good. You've also, I've read in your work that you talked about, literacy being both cognitive and cultural. Can you tell us a bit more about the cultural aspect?
The problem with looking at AI, as we say, it's a social technical condition. And without going into details about the constructivist approach behind the AI literacy that is now known as socially situated practice. So when we say literacy is a socially situated practice, it means it differs from one setting to the other setting. What literacy means in a Moroccan context is completely or maybe different from what literacy means here because of the cultural milieu of that context. And so when I say that AI should be also, when I say that AI literacy is also a culturally situated literacy, it also undergoes the same conditions that literacy undergoes. It has to take into consideration the cultural aspect of the output that we get from AI. And that's very important because uh, indigenous, we talked about indigenous people population, and indigenous population have their own unique ways of conceptualizing the world. Does that is that reflected in how AI, in the answers that AI provides us? It's not. Indigenous knowledges are completely marginalized. And an indigenous kid would not see themselves in the output of AI. They would not see their world. They would not see the thing they have been brought up doing being reflected in that context. So the cultural aspect of AI literally is very important to us. And unfortunately, unless the people behind these models be more open to and more diversified and more inclusive in the kind of data that goes into those models, we are going to see a very monocentric, a very monopolistic kind of manipulation of the data and content that is being shown here. And so cultural diversity should be, we always say it should be represented within the data and within the output we say here. And we do this example with undergraduate students where we ask ChatGPT the image generation thing. It's very popular example right now. Generate an image of a CEO company, and usually you get a white man in their middle age or late 50s wearing a suit and stuff like this. Why not black women? Why not women first gender? Why not black women, ethnic and race? And so we get these discussions about these kind of outputs with students, and they can see themselves the limits of and limitations of these models, and you get very fruitful discussions about these topics here.
That's very, very interesting. And, talking about cultural, I also wanted to bring the linguistic. Mark and I speak four languages. I think you must speak three, right? Arabic and French. I heard you say blank check in French.
And then ambition
Kharbach.
Deutsch.
Yeah. So actually, the last week we released 10 languages and four different voices. So 40 voices on It's our meditation AI that is free to use on our
Right.
adigitalwellness.com. And wanted your thoughts on different languages. So we have Arabic, French, German, Korean, Russian. Um, so there's 10 of them. And what do you know about different languages used with those LLM that are culturally specific, as you mentioned? How does that reflect in different languages?
I have been using the Arabic. I have been what I noticed in my translations before AI. It used to be very hard using Google Translate and stuff to because contextual translation is different from translating word to word. Contextual translation, it needs an awareness of the context of the language, the culture, the
Yeah.
people behind it, and it's very hard to get very accurate contextual translation. So with AI now, I use ChatGPT and Claude, especially ChatGPT. I get really some good translations, contextual translation, and I liked it. So that is a plus for me. I used it also with French, with a little bit of translation for French. That's the all my experience with it. But
Mhm.
I would say it is a very good feature for language learners. Very important feature for language learners. I would say the more languages we have, the better.
Great. Thanks for your comments. And, we talked about questioning AI's output. Can
Mhm.
you give kind of some best practice of when and how often you should question it? And as you mentioned before, we've had this discussion before. When you're an expert, you can question more, right? But when you're learning, what's the best practice to question the AI output?
Now, questioning is becoming an important skill in itself. Writing good, profound questions is becoming one of the most important skills now. If you don't write good questions, you won't get a quality product from AI. And so, yeah, we do ask our students to have this critical eye when they are dealing with AI, to always push it. Sometimes, even when the answer is correct, or when it provides you, let's say, with a paragraph that you think is fine, it won't hurt you to just ask it to redo it again with, looking at it from a different, or just redo it again. Just this very simple phrase can provide you with access to a different sort of output when you push it. Because from my own experience, and I might be wrong, especially with uh, complex tasks, I don't take the first answer at all. I always ask it for a different one. Usually, I'm not sure if the developers have done it this way, but it's like it economizes the tokens it uses to answer you. So if you're fine with that answer, that's fine. They go ahead. But if you push ahead, somehow, I don't know, magically, it provides a more qualitative answer. That's just from my own experience. It's not based on any research or anything, but I do use a lot of AI, and I do see some kind of patterns being repeated. When I push AI to give me a different version, or when I ask it to provide more details or stuff like this, usually what I get is more qualitative data, or more qualitative output. So I always ask our students to never get content with just the content means satisfied, not content that not get satisfied with the first output. Always try to push it, try to see how it can provide you with different angles and things like that. And it does magic. Sometimes it really provides very good quality products after a few just reiteration.
I do the same thing. I encourage people to never take the first answer or the first version. Normally, if I'm working with AI and I think the word collaborating is probably correct as well, I would go and ask many, 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 many questions and find like so then it would say, "Are you ready to release version 14?" Right? So like normally 10 plus versions,
True.
and then I would go manually and change things and then re-upload the
Yes.
versions and right. So I think that one of the things you mentioned for educators to see that chat history of the AI or that project would be very useful to see the thinking, right?
Yeah, that's right. You can see what they did, what how they interacted with AI, which prompts,
Hmm.
because the prompt can tell me a lot about the students' thinking. Just the way they write the prompt and the question, whether they are lazy, whether they invested some time, whether they have done some background reading before. And so the prompts is very important. And but it should not be the only kind of determinant of students' learning. Otherwise, you will end up uh, evaluating prompting skills, and we don't want that.
Yeah.
So we should evaluate other things, but prompting should not take a central place. Otherwise, your whole assessment thing would be just focused on how well students can prompt AI. And that's, they call it in literature of assessment, that's called the validity construct problem. Meaning what you have, yeah, validity construct problem is, let's say I have an essay. I ask my students to write an argumentative essay. And an argumentative essay, what I want to see is students' ability to synthesize ideas, to write coherent text and stuff like that. But when the student provides me with a desk, with the answer, with the essay, I went and looked at, for instance, how students use, let's say, how students use stats, or how students use translation to translate something to them, whether their translation is good. So I am sidelining what the skills and competencies I set forth at the beginning, and turn into evaluating a completely different set of competencies. When this happens, we have a validity construct problem. And the same thing with prompting. If I'm asking students to write about something, and then I ended up just evaluating how good their prompts are, then I am evaluating prompting skills, and not the initial competencies that I want to do. When this happens, that's the problem of validity of your assessment.
Thanks for explaining that.
Mhm.
And in terms of, you know, classifying what AI should do and what humans should do in terms of a collaboration, what would you suggest?
Yeah, the humans should. Some people, they say, uh, did the brainstorming with AI. Uh, it's okay, but I like to do the brainstorming myself, write the ideas from my own insights, from my own readings that I did, from everything. I like to have those ideas written first before I touch AI. So introduce AI at a delayed stage. That's good. At the
Mhm.
first stage, it's gonna be better to, because I'm gonna be honest. If I will have certain ideas about, let's say I'm going to write about a topic, the first thing I do, for instance, if you go to AI, it's going to influence those ideas. So I would rather, and it's gonna guide you whether we want it or not, because it provides some really very confident, reliable things that it's gonna impact you. So what I do is I like to do the ideation myself. Just put down the ideas that I have in my, before I use AI. These are my original kind of thinking. Then at a later stage, yes, develop them using AI. And so when people talk about brainstorming ideas, it is okay, but it should be taken with with a grain of salt, I would say. Personally, it doesn't do a lot of good to me. I'd rather do some of the thinking. Sometimes I would take those original ideas that I have and ask ChatGPT or Claude for their feedback on them and what's missing there and stuff like that. And so you still preserve the original ideas, and you probably get more kind of expansion on these ideas and things. But I always like to see these first seeds of being just yours, and then before they developed into this big project or whatever, I like to see those first seeds to be human generated before we develop them through AI.
So I just wanted to open up the floor for any questions that anybody might have who's been watching for Med, or just on the topic of AI and education. Please feel free to drop any questions in the chat right now.
And in the meantime, Med, are you generally optimistic about AI? And if so or not, what are still some concerns?
I am very much optimistic about AI. Very much optimistic, and I, I think it's gonna, especially in the medical area. I think I lost my mom 2 years ago from a brain injury, and she was paralyzed in a coma for some time before she died. So she suffered a lot. It's bad. And now that I see what's going on with AI, I'm thinking there will come one day where AI can solve, can cure a lot of, can help scientists and doctors find solutions to many of the cancers that are killing people now. The flu used to kill millions of people in the 16th, 15th centuries, and now you just get a pill from over the counter and you're done with the flu, and it's no longer a problem. So now, so the same thing, I'm thinking that AI will help find some very big truths in the medical sphere, especially in the medical area. I think it's gonna revolutionize medicine, and it's gonna overkill at least some of the diseases and problems that are causing deaths right now. And in education and research, of course, as I say, I do see its potential, a huge potential for AI to help us uh, improve uh, disciplinary knowledge. I talked about language. I talked about how it can save you the mental bandwidth when you're struggling with language. How many now researchers in different parts of the world, they can use AI. It's in sort of the same level. They can use AI to help them develop their ideas. Now they have the resources. Before, when I used to teach English in Morocco, they the spoken practice for students was very hard. You can't get any native speaker to bring them to class and talk to students so that they can hear the native English. Now they can just go to the voice mode on ChatGPT and hear all kinds of, hear the language being spoken correctly and in the accent that you want. So that's just one example, you
Mm.
see. So there is a huge potential I see for AI in education and in research, in medicine. Mhm. Will people use it badly? Will it uh, cause our extension? I don't know. That's a doom kind of view of AI. I don't subscribe to it. I'd rather see it from a positive perspective.
Thanks. Yeah, I think there is a lot of potential, and we are talking also sometimes about AI doing some scientific potential discovery, and collaborating in a way that increase science and clinical care. We did have another a doctor, a medical doctor, on the show before, talking about AI and how it's using, as you mentioned, can
And what
increase.
did he say?
So we were talking a lot about patient care and charting. His expertise was more in understanding doctors' notes and getting insight from that. But there is so many ways that AI can be involved in healthcare, and then he was one of the top
Was
leaders.
he optimistic about it too, or no?
Yes, yeah, you can check out
Okay.
the episode. It's on our feed.
Mm.
Data Alchemist, it's called. And
Okay.
you know, thinking about iterations, do you think that AI will outpace the assessments that you're mentioning now, and how to stay ahead of the curve? Like,
It is already outpacing everything we do. It's developing in a pace that is very hard to follow and to stay updated with, especially for teachers who are not even updated about technology. Because a lot of teachers, they come back home, they are tired, they won't go online and stay updated about the tools and whatever it is, so they need very specific professional development training, and there are not many for in schools now, and universities faculty are complaining of lack of professional development, or adequate professional development. And so you can't ask a teacher to improve their AI literacy and you tell them do it on yourself or by yourself. That's very hard to do. So there must be some institutional commitment towards providing teachers and faculty with quality workshops, with quality professional development sessions, and to help them understand AI, use it, show them how to use it. We do need. And as for assessment, there is always this cat and mouse kind of war between. It's gonna never gonna stop, at least for the foreseeable future, and assessment will be always a problem. I would say it will be, at least for the next few years, it will be a problem to uh, design assessments that can
Mm.
help us see students learning. It's going to be very hard.
Yes. So I don't want to stop the discussion. I do have to go. So I can let you two gentlemen keep
yeah,
talking.
I'll continue another.
It was a pleasure meeting you, Med, and I hope that we get to
Thank
speak
you,
again in the
Mark.
future. And
Thank you.
yeah, I hope you have a nice rest of the conversation with Christian. So goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
So yeah, very interesting conversation. So I'm enjoying extending it a little bit. You talked about the teacher. Can we say that the teacher is kind of the technology that's not going to change, right? So if the technology is changing, the teacher has still the ability to create a curriculum, create assessment, create learning opportunities and learning outcomes, right?
That's right. Yeah. Because the thing with AI is, for the first time in our human history, we have a technology that is an extension of our cognitive abilities. Before, most of the technologies we had just an extension of our physical bodies, from the car, from the, you call it whatever, all the technology that was around, it was there to help us do things with our physical manual kind of jobs. And now this AI thing, it started to compete with us within a domain that was exclusively human, which is the cognition. That was exclusively human. And now that AI can do some of the cognitive work, complex cognitive work like humans, it becomes a problem, as well as as well as an advantage. It's also a liability because of in the learning, because of our students using it in a bad way, and this is a big problem. And no matter what strategies we're talking about, if students still decide that they're going to use it in a bad way, that is gonna still gonna be possible. So I don't think there are very magical solutions to it, but at least we have some kind of strategies to mitigate this misuse, but not to completely abolish it.
I would also, urge either students or educators to think of it as, we can expect that there's going to be cheating. There's cheatings and people cheat their taxes. There's been cheating in schools way
That's
before
true.
computers, right? So there's always going to be a
Yeah,
percentage, right? But
yeah,
the idea, instead of focusing on that, is to kind of educate the educator and the students and saying, hey, you can use AI. You can even cheat if you want. But at the
that's
end of
right.
this course and this degree, if you don't know anything, what are you going to do in life, right?
Yeah,
So
if you get a degree and you get to work,
yeah,
then you're in this company, but you have no skills. How can you do that?
yeah, yeah.
There is a big problem, and you're true. I agree 100%. You can get a degree, but I'm not sure you will get the work you want because you have no skills. That's right. AI
Exactly.
has them.
Yeah. And looking at the end of the podcast, we normally have this section called Real Talk. So,
Okay.
please share kind of a more personal story that you want with the audience, about you, about Morocco, about Canada, about whatever you want to share.
Yeah, sure. That was quite a surprise to me. So, uh, Morocco, I shared about Morocco. If you wanna,
Yeah.
anybody wants to go to Morocco or whatever. So the thing you said personal, so I'll go personal. So when he came here to Canada, so in Morocco, when you go shopping, so you have to kind of to bicker with the person. You have to they give you a price, but that's not the final price. You have to say they will say, okay, this one costs, let's say, 20 euros, and then you have to go, no, I'll give you just 15. They would say, no, 17, no, 16. So you have to go with
You
this
have to
up and
bargain,
down.
and it's fun. It's expected,
The
right?
bargain,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So the
yeah.
bargain. So we took it for granted in Morocco that everything some people say it's not the final price. They are
Yeah.
just trying to bargain. So when he came here to Canada, the first weeks, I was having really big problems just getting this bargain mentality from my mind. People say to you, "That's the price. That's the price. That's the final." They look at you. What do you mean the final price? That's you know.
That's a good
That's
one
something
because
culture I brought with me. Yeah.
yeah, I have done the opposite. I was in Morocco, as I told you, for a couple of weeks, and I also across the Middle East, and specifically in Egypt. I was there for 2 weeks, and I
Okay.
learned enough Arabic so I can bargain in Arabic. So then I would have
Wow.
cheaper price even than bargaining in English, right? So
That's exactly. If you bargain in English or French, you're still gonna be having that. But in Arabic,
yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
That's very smart. I agree, 100%.
So thanks again. And where can the
Thank
listeners
you.
find your upcoming books? And you have also books published already. Tell a bit about the
Yeah,
website,
they
your
just
book.
Google me on Mid Kharbach in Google. Check me out on LinkedIn, my website.
Yeah.
Very happy if anybody reaches out with questions and around this episode or anything else. Happy also to learn about your product, the platform you're developing,
Yes. We
and
will be
share it with me,
releasing some
please, when it's
information, and
ready.
we'll give you some early access for comments.
Yeah,
I think we've done some tests. We've had really good results so far.
good,
We're piloting to 5,000 students very soon. And yeah, if anyone's interested, please reach out to us as well, at
good.
Christian Dominic on LinkedIn, or our second website is also awewellness.org. So find us there, and look at what our AI products that are ethical and evidence based. I was just at a neuroscience conference last week talking about our AI, and I'll be at a psychology conference next week. So I
That's
won't be
cool.
on the show next week, but Mark will be with a new guest. Do we have the name of the guest or the show for next week? If not, you can find us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, YouTube. And thanks again. Any closing remarks, Med, for the audience?
Th- Yeah, thank you very much. Pleased to speak to you and to your audience. Really enjoyed our discussions and wishing you all the best.
Thanks so much. Please keep in touch. And I really enjoyed the insight of AI
Thank
in
you.
the context of education, and rethinking the fact that it's not a conversation about AI is amazing or we should ban AI, it's the devil. It's more about pushing the teacher and the learner at the center of the experience, and about being literal in what we're doing, and literate
Yes.
in terms of
Literate, yes.
finding the ways to balance
True.
our cognition with a tool that is powerful and that is helping the world in many ways. And thank you for that contribution. I'm looking forward as well to your book. And thank you for the recommendations.
Thank you.
I'm really happy that you're helping a lot of educators in the space.
Thank you
And
very
we
much,
work
Christian.
we work with schools, we work with youth organizations as well. If we can collaborate, let us know. We would love to
Sure.
show the
Thank
portal.
you.
We have not only the AI, we have the humans. We
Yeah.
have the reset, which is audio meditation that is a complement to Medi. And we try to bring more peace and wellness as well as information to the world, the students, the parents,
Sure.
and the teachers. So thanks for being part of the journey. And we'll welcome you again soon. Maybe when your
Thank
book
you.
launch,
Yeah,
let us
sure.
know. We'll invite you
Thank
again.
you. Thank you very much, Christian.
Have a great day. Thanks,
You
everyone.
too.